Stopping by with us right now, a guy I've known for a long time. He's a podcaster. He's an analyst. I got a list here, Ross, of all the different things. Ross Tucker, you do NFL game analyst for CBS and Westwood One, as well as host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, which I've not been on in a few years. I recall the last time I was on that podcast, we were talking COVID protocols. So it has been a minute since you had me. It's good to see you, though.
Tom, it's great to see you, and I'm so proud of you and guys like you, because I remember, you were just busting your butt on the Vikings beat, and I remember on the fantasy show, I have a fantasy podcast, Fantasy Feast, Evan Silva, he basically ranks beat writers, and he was like, Tom Pelissero is the best in the NFL. This guy is on it. If he says something, it's a lot. So then when you got the opportunities that you've gotten now, very, very well-deserved and well-earned.
I appreciate that. We were talking off air. You were playing at Lambeau Field your rookie year, 25 years ago, 24 years ago at this point?
Yeah, 2001. Interestingly, 2001 was my rookie year. So what's crazy about that is we played the first game, and then before the second game, so if you're like a rookie like I was, they give you a hotel room through the first week of the season. Then it's like, all right, you got to find an apartment. So then I finally get an apartment. Tuesday, September 11th, the cable guy comes to hook up my cable. It was September 11th. He comes into my apartment. He's hooking my TV up real quick, and he's like, some small plane just flew into the Twin Towers. I'm not kidding. The Comcast guy and I sat there for 2 hours and just watched my TV that he had just hooked up. It was crazy. And not to get too far into it, but my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, that was her first day of work. I didn't actually know where she worked down there. So I kept calling, and it kept going, circuits are busy or whatever. I didn't know where all my buddies from college at Princeton were. It was wild. So then that weekend, they canceled all the games.
Right.
The next weekend, we played Monday Night Football at Green Bay against the Packers, which was a very emotional, because this is before Thursday night. Sunday night wasn't a big deal. So that Monday night game was the real coming together. So we played Monday night. We lose badly. We fly back on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I come to the facility. They cut Jeff George. He was our starting quarterback. This is my rookie year, Tom. I'm like, wait a minute. They just cut and started. They just cut Jeff George. I mean, think about those first 3 weeks of my NFL life, where September 11th happened. We miss a game, and then they cut the starting quarterback. And I was like, okay, all right. I better not mess up at practice today if they just cut Jeff George.
It was a slightly heavier cable installation story than one of the ones we were telling off air earlier. We'll get into Del Tufo in the black box in a little bit. But Green Bay, the site of this draft, you were saying, you pull up to it. It was like a high school field. I was on the Green Bay Press-Gazette from 2007 to 2009 covering the Packers. There was nothing there. It was just the single-story houses all the way around it. Across the street now, where you're going to see all these beautiful shots of the title town area that they're calling it, and the brewery and the hotel. It was literally a gas station with a Subway in it on the corner directly across from Lambeau Field. And I ate at that Subway many times. One of the better Subways in Green Bay at the time.
So the two things I remember.
There's an in Green Bay.
The two things I remember.
I give you full power rankings.
Number one, we're driving on these back roads, and it felt like you were just in my hometown, Wyoming, Pennsylvania. And then you turn around this one house, and Lambeau Field's right there. And then we're getting smoked by the Packers, okay? And I'm inactive. I'm on the sideline, and one of the veterans says, I'm ready for my brat, bro. I'm ready for my brat. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, there's some lady that stands outside the visiting team locker room, and while we get on the bus after we shower, she gives you a brat. Sure enough, my first 2 years, we played at Green Bay. The game is over. You go shower. Before you get on the bus, there's a lady there, happy as can be, maybe because the Packers beat us both times, giving us brats. I am convinced that the Packers planted her there, psychological warfare. Because you get to the fourth quarter, you're hungry,
you're just thinking about a
and
brat,
you
maybe.
know the lady with the brat lady is going to be there for you.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, it'd be cool to win this game, but overtime doesn't sound good. I really want this brat right now.
You took a lot of plane rides in your time in the NFL. Do you have strong feelings on the plane seat? You were backstage while we were talking about this.
I heard
the worst
you, yeah.
seat on the plane. They argue back of the plane. All right, near the bathroom.
Yeah.
I argue
Middle,
first
though.
seat.
Back of the plane, middle.
Back of the plane, middle. I argue first seat in the area directly behind first class on the side where the walkway turns. What is your worst seat on the
That's
plane?
my number. What are you talking about? That's my number one favorite seat.
How is that?
Because you have as much leg room.
All right,
You can just be like this. Like, you have as much leg room as you want. It's amazing. The worst by far for me, okay, is the exact last row, middle, because you can't lean your seat back at all.
That was their argument.
And I know there's a lot of debate about leaning back or not. Let me just tell you guys, in all sincerity, okay? I had a back surgery when I played in Buffalo. L4, L5, L5S1. If I'm like this, I am absolutely miserable. Like a plane is.
Me too.
If I can go like that, this is heaven. This is joy. I'm telling you, it's like I don't need to go all the way back, but when people say you should never lean your seat back on a plane, I'm telling you right now, I promise you I'm leaning it back every single time. And if the lady,
How long do you wait?
What's that?
How long do you wait? When do you put the seat back? Is it do you wait for the ding? Is it the moment the wheels? I'm a wheels off the ground, the seat's going back. At that point, I don't think that anything I do is really going to impact me in the case of a crash.
As soon as the flight attendant straps in and is not going to come back to my butt, I go back. We're still on the ground.
That's
We're
over the
still
line.
on the ground.
You can't do it on the ground.
Yeah, I have to.
So you're an adult man and you're willing to risk the, excuse me, sir, did you not hear the announcement? You can't do that yet.
Tom,
You're willing to get that tapped.
do you think there's a lot of people that are likely to do that to me? To say that to
You've
me?
lost a lot of weight since your playing days. You see, you still look like you're in pretty
The
good
only
shape.
person that's going to say it is the person directly behind you, and they're not going to say anything.
So you're out here right now for the broadcast boot camp.
Yeah.
I was over at NFL Network yesterday hosting the Insiders, and so I was seeing some of the people coming through. You are faculty for this, but you're not just the Hair Club for Men president. You're also a client.
Yeah, I went to the first one they ever had. It was 2007, NFL Films, Mount Laurel, New Jersey. I didn't know if I wanted to do this or not. I'd actually always grown up wanting to be a broadcaster. But then you kind of get at Princeton, like nobody talks about that, right? It's all finance, blah, blah, blah. And then the NFL, that's what everybody says they're going to do.
That's what the class is actually called.
Yeah, finance, blah, blah, blah. And then the NFL, that's what everybody says they're going to do. So I did internships, like when I played for the Cowboys, Roger Staubach's commercial real estate company. Like I did all those internships. But then the NFL had this broadcast boot camp. And I just thought, Tom, I love football so much. And people can tell when they hear me do whatever. Even if I just do the Princeton games on the radio, like I'm gonna have to fill that void somehow. So I went to the boot camp, and I'll never forget. One of the first things they do is it's James Brown is the host, and it's like an audition kind of. And they told you welcome in the camera, like the camera's the third person in the conversation. So James Brown asked me a question, and I said, "Well, James, that's a really good question." And the answer, Tom, I looked at the camera. I froze for, it felt like 10 seconds. It probably was only 3 or 4. I realized right then, I had never actually just looked into a camera and talked before. It's not natural to look into a metal object and just start talking and treat it like a person. Like that took some, so I froze. So my audition tape from the first ever broadcast boot camp is James Brown asking me a question and me just freezing. Thank goodness that's not what I had to use to try to get these gigs.
I was over there talking to Chris Wirtz and Andy Gregg and some of the guys who do that. I'm sure that tape does exist. So now that you've made me aware of it, I'm going to make it my mission when I'm there later today to go ahead and find it. I wanted to get your take on this because it's going to be a big topic over the next 6 weeks or so. It was tabled at the league meeting. It'll come up again in May. But the idea of banning the Tush Push, and not just the Tush Push, the conversation now has centered on a rule that was changed during your playing career. After the 04 season, prior to that, pushing and pulling, all pushing and pulling was outlawed. They then made all of it legal in 2005. So you remember how playing the position was taught before and after.
Yeah.
What is your take on this now? What do you remember then?
Well, so it's interesting. I don't remember it being that big of a deal. I remember them being very clear you can't pull. But I'm even looking back, Tom, and I can almost remember plays where I would come in and push the pile. Think about like John Runyon for the Eagles during that time and some of those guys. They never called it. Like if you came in and pushed the pile forward, they never called that. In fact, somebody did the research, and you probably know, Tom, the last time like pushing was called was like in the 90s, like 93 or something. The last time they actually called it. My issue is I there's two things that they keep talking about. Number one, the health and safety. And number two, they really don't like how it looks stylistically, right? I don't think they're going to be able to write a rule that changes that. First of all, the health and safety aspect of it, that is the posture and the mechanism in which the O-line and D-line are in their stance. Even if you take away the tush push, that's every quarterback sneak, bro.
Right?
That's every fourth and inches. Like, that's the posture. That's like, so they're changing nothing in my mind in terms of the health and safety, right? The next thing about how it looks stylistically, let's say they go back to the pre-05 rules, okay? The Eagles are still going to have, or any team, they'll have a tight end or whoever on Jalen Hurts' hip, and they will have that guy wedge block, basically, to prevent anybody coming from the outside, push the guard in front of them, protect the side of Hurts. In other words, it's still going to, in my opinion, Tom, it'll still look the same. It'll look very, very similar. You won't see the full-on two-hand push forward, but you'll still see guys, I believe, behind Hurts or on the wings of Hurts, filtering in there to try to help root out a hole for him and give him more space. So I don't, even if they go back to the pre-05, they might be happy that they passed a rule to ban the tush push. I personally believe stylistically, it will still probably look very similar.
So when you say wedge block, you mean basically, all right, you put two tight ends on either side of Jalen Hurts, and you just have them run forward like they're going to block. So if somehow the guard or the center gets beat and a D tackle's coming through, you're hitting that guy behind him.
Right, so they put their helmet on Hurts' hip, okay, and they drive block either way, so they protect Hurts from the outside, and they continue to push the pile forward. So maybe they're pushing the center and the guard, they're pushing that forward. I think it's going to look very, very similar no matter how they try to write the rule.
And you're right. The John Runyon highlight reel, which you can still find sometimes, like made on Instagram, and it's all like the play is over. And then 3 seconds later, here comes John Runyon, full Superman, over the pile, hitting a guy who's not involved in the play. And that's why they changed the rule, was downfield, not those plays specifically, which you should be able to see, but it was just the every play of a guy going down to block. And was he pushing? Was he trying to hit the defender? They weren't able to officiate it. And that's one thing that always drives these rule changes beyond health and safety is if we can't officiate it consistently, then let's not try to have that be the rule, or let's rewrite it.
And Tom, let's say they go hard and fast with that rule, and you cannot push the ball carrier. So the offensive linemen, like me, we're not just going to stand around. So what are we going to do instead? Rib shots, kidney shots for the defenders that are coming to gang tackle, right? If we're not allowed to push our guy forward, then we're going to try to pick those guys off. It does not make sense to me that, let's say there's one ball carrier and one tackler. So 5 other tacklers can come in and gang tackle and knock that ball carrier backwards, but you're not going to let any of the offensive players push him forward. That doesn't make sense. Well, let's say that's the rule, okay? Then you're going to see offensive linemen come through and just try to pick those guys off the pile with helmets and shoulders to the ribs, to the kidneys. I mean, it's actually going to be worse from a health and safety standpoint for the defenders downfield.
Well, we also saw the other part of that, which is Washington last year. Everybody remembers the repeatedly jumping over the pile and the threats were going to award the score. Washington also was having guys off the edge just run and try to tackle the pushers.
Right.
If you watch it, they've got guys just lined up, and all they're trying to do is get to A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert or whoever it is and basically tackle those guys before they can push. That's the part of it that I understand. I also think that just the play itself, it does not look like football. It looks like something else. It looks like a rugby play. To your point, even if you don't go with the alignment, you have a champion power lifter at quarterback. You've got the most talented offensive line in the NFL. Those plays of just head down, move the pile, are we then going to get to the point of, well, now you got to be head up, and what are all the fallouts of that? That's where you get into a complicated part of this.
1,000%. They're still going to be extremely successful running the quarterback sneak. Landon Dickerson and Mailata in particular on the left side, movers of men. Those guys are absolute monsters. So I'd be surprised if the Eagles aren't still effective no matter how they do it.
You had any strong NFL draft takes for 15 days out? Is there one thing, whether it's a prospect, what a team should do, one thing that you feel very confident saying right now?
Yeah. And I think, Tom, it's however much we talk about Travis Hunter, it's probably not enough. I did a Colorado State game last year. I went to their practice. The guy, you ever see like a baseball player who like a tremendous outfielder that they just, the way they go up for the timing of like to catch a fly ball or whatever, or a long drive, or even a basketball player that's just so awesome with the finger rolls. Watching him at practice was unbelievable. Just this week, okay? Today's Ross Tucker Football Podcast, I had Todd McShay on the show. You guys all know Todd McShay. He has Travis Hunter as the #1 ranked wide receiver, the #1 ranked corner, okay? Fran Duffy, who does a terrific job, was on my Fantasy Feast podcast today. He did 2 separate players in his scouting database. Travis Hunter, the wide receiver, Travis Hunter, the quarterback. He did 2 totally different players, okay? They're not the same guy. Both players are in the top 5 of his database, top 5 prospects for this draft. We're not talking about that enough. Tom, you know, college football is like 160 snaps, 80 snaps, both teams, no huddle. The fact that he played that many snaps, the fact that he's better than every other guy at both positions, it is crazy. He's one of one. I can see why the Titans would take a guy like Cam Ward because they need a quarterback. But if you're and I love Abdul Carter. I'm from outside of Philly. I live near Penn State. I love Abdul Carter. I'm not taking Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter. I'm not doing that. Like a guy that can truly affect both sides of the ball, and I think will at the NFL level, I'm taking Travis Hunter #2.
The biggest thing in talking to coaches about Travis Hunter, and I asked several head coaches, we got a feature that we're working on for NFL Network around the draft, just like what's the feasibility? Could you actually play 140 snaps, let's say, on average in an NFL game? Could you do that? The primary thing that, and I asked Brian Callahan about this, Brian Schottenheimer, among others, was the biggest challenge is going to be there's so much technique, there's so much volume in scheme. You can't be in 2 places at once. You can't be in 2 different meetings. You can't go through individual drills at both position every day. So are you holding yourself back in your development, or do you need to start out, okay, you're going to play corner, and then as we ramp up here, we're going to give you a package. Okay, now we're going to give you 2 packages and try to get there. There is something to be said, though, for this guy believes he can do it because he's done it. He did it at the college level, playing every snap. And how do you then get him on board with, okay, here's exactly how we're going to roll out this entire plan?
I think he has to be in the defensive meetings. I think he has to be in the defensive back meetings. Communication, other than offensive line, the secondary is where communication is probably the second most important. He can't just go out there and start to cover guys. He has to know how they're switching up coverages, how they're passing things off. So he's got to be a corner and in all the corner meetings. And then you just said it. You can package him on offense. You can give him a small introductory package of 5 to 10 plays where he knows what route he's running and kind of ease him in on the offensive side of the ball. You can't do it the opposite way. Although I've had people say that they think he's more ready on the offensive side of the ball to contribute, and that if he went to New England at 4 or if he went to these other teams at 2 or 3, that maybe they're better off just making him a full-time receiver for what their team needs.
Deion Sanders, the closest thing that we saw to it in the mid-'90s. That was a ways into his career, too. Yeah. But legit playing. He was the 3rd receiver on the Cowboys. He had like 45 catches one year. That's the closest thing. He had 1 year. Brockman can look up the exact stats, but he had 40-plus catches. The 1 year they totally cut him loose. Okay, you're going to do this. And he did it at a pretty high level through the course of that season.
I didn't remember him doing it that much. I remember
that's the last player that I recall doing it in any extended way. Not the Mike Vrabel, J.J. Watt at the goal line. What do you got, Brockman?
His second year in Dallas, 96. He had 36 catches for almost 500 yards.
Like he was legit number 3 wide receiver on the team.
67 targets.
Right. And that's full volume number 3 receiver.
And back then, that was high volume because they were a running football team, right? Yes. So back then, with Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and those guys, for him to get that's a lot of volume.
He is an NFL game analyst for CBS and Westwood One, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Anything else you want to plug before you get out of here, Ross?
Yeah, no, that's good. Ross Tucker. Follow me on social media if you want to, at Ross Tucker NFL. We'll see what food I got going tonight. Maybe a nice beer or 2.
And don't sit in front of Ross on the plane because he's going to be stretching those legs out and kicking the underside of your seat and then reclining into your lap. Ross, great seeing you, buddy.
Of course, thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate it.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.